a GM in for an interview, of course, you have to ask him about every sports league, and that's exactly what my co-host Michael Bumpus and I were doing for Mariners GM Justin Hollander. Just, hey, Justin, who are you taking number 5 for the Seahawks?
Will Anderson.
Exactly. Yeah, Will Anderson. He's definitely dropping to 5. I love that pick, and I loved your little dropping in some knowledge about just how much of a nerd you used to be about drafts. And you were talking about, exactly, you were talking about it, and I was like, this is a guy who was born to be a GM, let me tell you. I can see it now.
I actually have to break the Breanna Stewart news to my daughter tonight when I get home, and she's going to be devastated by the whole thing. I gave her a warning a couple days ago that it may be coming, and she's sick. She's got a jersey, and I'm going to have to explain that, you'll get to see her, but it'll be in a different uniform next year. So hopefully that talk goes well. I'm a little nervous.
Maybe she could end up being kind of a Liberty fan too, and like a Breanna Stewart fan. People kind of root for LeBron no matter where.
Yep, exactly. No, it's part of the deal. And as long as I keep the favorite Mariners that she has, I'll be in good standing. Okay. So we'll be okay.
Well, obviously there's a lot to talk about with the Mariners, but I'm sitting here talking to you, and I'm like, this dude is a GM. Like, the way you talk about sports, the way you analyze things, was there a moment early in your life where you said, okay, maybe this is a route I want to go, or did you kind of just stumble upon this?
The lack of athletic talent kind of steers you in a direction. If you're going to be involved in sports, it may be in a jacket as opposed to in a jersey. No, there's probably not a single moment in life that it occurred to you this is a possibility. I think you're probably, when you're a kid, and I was explaining when we were off air a little bit that I used to stay home and watch the NFL draft, and I've always been interested in the roster building part of sports, all sports, not just baseball. So getting to experience that growing up and just watching from afar, reading things, books or magazines about roster construction and building, and having, volumes of baseball encyclopedias growing up, and just understand how different players performed through the course of history. Those are things that you just do as a kid.
Yeah.
And obviously, having no athletic ability whatsoever, looking for an alternative to stay in sports.
Same. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, right there with you. I didn't become a GM. I became a radio host. Very different paths, very different income brackets for us here. But you've been assistant GM for a while. It's not like this is new territory for you. You've been so instrumental in major trades this organization has made, in big roster decisions. So you've been part of it. You've been part of building this team. But are there still moments when you think oh, I am a GM? Wow, that's really weird.
It really only feels weird when, for instance, when we're trading for Teoscar, and I call Teoscar and I introduce myself as the GM of the Mariners, and I'm like, well, that sounds weird. But, beyond that, the jobs that we're doing aren't that much different. We have a ton of support, from ownership and Jerry to our whole baseball ops staff. And other than, an occasional radio appearance or doing something outside the bounds of what I used to do, it's all kind of the same. But, saying it out loud every once in a while does feel weird. And it's awesome. It's great.
A lot of movement has happened throughout the league in the offseason, and us and everyone else is saying, make the big move, big move, come on. But
Justin,
the more
full disclosure, I did yell at you guys for that.
The more that I talk to guys like you and Service, and then I'm reading up on you guys, there's a method to your madness. There's a philosophy that you guys are standing by. When all this chaos is going on around you, is it hard to stick to it, or are you guys just so entrenched in what you believe that you're okay with the chaos going around you, just sitting in your chair saying, all right, this is how we're going to approach this offseason?
It's an interesting question. I think that you're always looking to make the team better, and what you can't do is get locked into one way. There's one player or one path to make the team better. If you do that and you miss, your offseason's a disaster.
Right.
So going into an offseason with multiple different plans, multiple different ways you think you can attack your roster to get better, I think that's the most important thing, and not being hung up on one player or one idea. We have to go sign this one free agent, or we have to trade for this one player. Doing all that and also allowing for some growth from your own team. And we were talking about it earlier today, if you never provide a runway for your internal options to get better, to improve, you'll never be sustainable. You'll never be as good as you think you are. And, this time last year, if I had told you that Cal Raleigh would turn into one of the best catchers in baseball, I think the general sentiment of, the average observer would have said, oh, you need to sign more certainty. You need to bring in someone that will provide, a better, more perfect, this is, a more certain outcome as the season goes on. we chose not to do that because we wanted to give Cal runway. It started off a little rocky, and then from the time he came back from the minor leagues, he turned into one of the best players in baseball, and that changes our fortune. That changes our franchise forever. We have to find the right balance between adding and also allowing for development of our own roster.
You guys kind of have that going on in the outfield where it's like you obviously, everything being fair, if someone were to throw a random outfield bat at you, you'd be like, sure, no problem. But you also have a lot of young guys that could end up filling that role just because they aren't fully established as consistent big leaguers yet. But I mean, Taylor Trammell, Jared Kelenic could end up being out there. Is that kind of the mindset for instance, like left field as well, where it's like we've got so many guys who could do that?
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of the reason why we signed AJ Pollock as well. Is we balance the uncertainty that JK and Trammell bring with the certainty that AJ brings, while balancing their skill sets as well. So how can we, to use this sort of an HR term, how can we onboard JK and Tram into the big leagues, into a situation where the team is very competitive, where we have big goals. We want to win the division. We want to make the playoffs. We want to win the World Series this year, while also allowing for growth for them. And that probably means pairing them with somebody like AJ, who's got a ton of experience, who, if forced into everyday duty because you have injuries or something else happens that things don't click, he's perfectly capable of doing that. And in a role, he's a huge advantage for us, both as, a corner outfield accent to what JK and Trammell bring, and also as a backup center fielder, someone with a lot of playoff experience and, a plus in the makeup section in the clubhouse. Like those sort of an ideal form of what you're trying to do.
Man, I love just the core of this team, Gino, Ty, JP, Julio. And I'm looking at Julio, and who he is today was not who he was at this time last year, whereas his profile and what he's done on the diamond. Do you have conversations with him kind of preparing him? Because I think I heard Service mention, like, players are like, you invest so much in a guy, he's like a partner almost. Do you have conversations with him about, how to lead this team and what your expectations are with him, or does he kind of just naturally fall into that role and there's not much coaching that needs to be done?
Probably more organic than that, probably more natural. I think those conversations are probably better served from Scott and the coaching staff, and also his veteran teammates, than someone like me. I think, me going down and telling Julio what the team needs from a leadership standpoint, obviously we know what we're getting as a person. That's the most important thing. How he chooses to lead, sometimes it'll be, energy and excitement. Sometimes, he'll guys grow into the role where they're the speech maker. They're the guy that pulls someone aside and has the hard conversation. But that's not for everybody. And obviously Julio's 22 years old, so asking him to go do that at 22 is tough. So those are things that will happen over time more organically, and probably be steered in that direction by Scott, the staff downstairs who's with him every day, and along with his teammates.
Earlier today, Justin, we had a chance to talk with Teoscar Hernandez, and he was wonderful. We had listeners texting in like, I can't wait to see this guy out here. It took him 2 seconds to win over listeners, just so you're aware. But now we get a chance to talk to you, someone who made the call on bringing Teoscar here. So I wanted to start with just Teoscar as a player. You're looking at him, you're talking around the league. I don't know what other GM things you do. I would imagine there's like a whiteboard involved. Maybe like, I know you don't drink coffee, maybe some Diet Cokes. Who knows? GM things are happening. And you make the decision to bring in Teoscar. What did you see with him? What did you hear about with him where you thought this is a missing piece for us and we're bringing him here?
Obviously, we followed Teoscar for a long time. He's been an advantage offensively, a difference-making type bat in our league for a long time. So it's not like we uncovered this needle in the haystack or anything.
You didn't
like,
find this hidden gem in
the
the
All-Star
middle of a
team, like
lineup.
Silver Sluggers, and like he's,
You guys heard about this Teoscar?
We have heard about him.
You go up to Jerry. This guy's got 30 home runs.
Yeah,
Did we know about this guy?
We're talking about this.
The first time he hit a homer against us was not in the playoffs against Robbie, so we were familiar with what he brings to the table and had conversations with the Blue Jays over a period of time dating back to previous seasons about potentially acquiring him and what a good fit we thought he would be on the field and off the field. And one of the big, carrying traits for Teoscar is what he brings off the field, the makeup, the human being. We've always heard rave reviews from teammates, coaches, other people who've been around him, what kind of person he is. And obviously, offensively, he fits like a glove for what we needed as a team, which is someone who could legitimately change the middle of our lineup to give protection for Julio and Ty and Gino and Cal and really make that group stronger and more dangerous.
Well, we know your pitching staff was awesome last year. It was the rock of this team, man. It was nice to see Robbie turn things around. You get Luis Castillo in the middle of the season. With all the success that they've had, It's always about getting better, right? Is there something like you need more from that staff, or can they just duplicate what they did last year and you think things will be all right?
I think it's always a goal that everyone gets better, that everyone comes up with either a new pitch or perfects something that they're working on. I think the unique thing about our staff is they were really good last year, and they're also all still prime age or before prime age. So, I do expect guys like Logan and George to continue to get better, and I'm not expecting really any change or any drop-off from guys like The Rock or Robbie Ray. And then we'll see what the fifth starter brings. Obviously, Marco and Flex will battle it out in the spring. And really interested to see how that goes. Both guys are immense competitors. They care. They want to win. They really prepare in the offseason. They really prepare between each outing. So we'll see what the fifth starter brings. But I would expect that group to be the strength of our team again.
You mentioned that if you were to tell anyone Cal Raleigh would end the season with the kind of year he did, we'd probably call you crazy. So I'm not asking you to predict anything specific for any player, but is there a player you look at with this roster that you just feel in your gut, like, I feel like this guy is primed for something really special in 23?
I think Logan Gilbert is going to take a huge step forward this year. I think he's, Logan has done things over time to evolve as a pitcher, and I think this is the year you're going to see Logan even take another step forward. And I think that when we go out for the when we go out and watch the All-Star game at T-Mobile at midseason this year, it wouldn't shock me at all to see Logan Gilbert as one of the starting pitchers for that game. I'm really excited to see every year he adds a little something. He's seen the league a couple times through now, and I think we haven't yet seen the best of Logan Gilbert.
I feel like I always ask about this guy whenever I talk about the Mariners. How's Haggerty doing, man? How's my guy doing? I feel like if I were to play baseball, I'd be Haggerty out there.
Yesterday
so I always
with Shannon,
check up
he
on
said,
him.
"How's Ham?" How's Ham?
That was an accident, Stace.
Okay, I didn't mean to put you on blast.
It wasn't a nickname I gave him.
Ham is doing great.
Fantastic.
He's feeling good. Obviously recovered from the offseason or the end of season injury that he had all through the offseason. I can't say enough about what he did last year as a spark plug for our team, changing the way we played. Dominated versus left-handed pitching. He's probably one of, if not the best base runner in the American League, and the threat that he poses either as a starter, getting on base, coming into the game, stealing a base when we need it, energizing our group, just finding a way to make an impact on the game. And then the crazy athleticism that he features all over the diamond.
Yeah.
We didn't see a lot of it last year. Haggerty came up as an infielder, so he can see time on the infield. Obviously, he can run around the outfield. Just the athleticism and the spark and the energy that he brought to our club really changed the tone of our season when he came up last year. He made so many big plays, had so many big hits. I don't expect anything different from him this year, and I do think the new wider bases, the pickoff rules is, Sam really stands to benefit from that. He's one of the best base stealers in the league now. And that's with the old rules. I have to imagine it'll be just a constant threat to have Haggerty available to us as an option, either off the bench or to start against left-handed pitching. Really, another successful season on the way for Sam.
We are speaking with Mariners GM Justin Hollander. Justin, I know you're limited in what you can tell us here, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask. The season to be able to trade, to be able to make moves is not over. I have no idea what a temperature check is like. I mean, is it slowing down? Is it kind of staying the same? I mean, are you guys still listening? Like, what's the situation there as far as potential moves?
Definitely always still listening and still reaching out and checking in with clubs. That never stops.
Yeah.
That's just the way that this business works. It is 52 weeks a year, basically. Even last week, I took a little vacation with my wife, and I was still texting and talking to other clubs while we were away. And
I'm sure she loved that.
She did.
Yeah, I'm sure she was like, no, this is great.
She was thrilled. No, that's just part of the deal. And obviously we're always motivated to try and make the team better. If there's something to do, we will absolutely want to do it to help the club. Jerry made the comment earlier downstairs when we were doing the big press conference that the team you have on February 1st doesn't have to be the team that you have on April 1st or June 1st. Kind of does have to be the team you have on August 1st. But until then, there's always ways to get better, and we're always going to try and look at those.
What are your thoughts on the pitch clock?
I love the pitch clock.
Yeah.
Like, having sat in enough minor league games, one, you really don't notice it after, an inning or two as a fan, but the tempo is the biggest thing that it helps with. I don't, when I was a kid coming to games, I rooted for them to be as long as possible. Like, that's more time for me to eat peanuts. That's
Right.
more innings for me to watch. Like, there's just more, more time at the ballpark is a good thing. What we want is tempo, though, when we're having it. You don't want to wait 30 seconds between a pitch. You don't want the pitcher walking around, like no shot at Diego Castillo, but playing with the sleeves and doing all that. Like, we want guys on the rubber, throwing the next pitch, getting the ball. We want action in the game. I think it'll be a huge positive in terms of overall time of game, but more importantly, pace of game.
Related question, has changes with the shift this year changed the way that you guys as a front office have thought about player value?
We've looked at it around the league. Obviously, we're well aware, at least on our models, who we think will pop based on the limits on shifting. There's a couple guys on our team that show up on that list pretty highly.
Anyone you want to tell us about?
Sure, Cal and JK are like the two most obvious ones that stand out.
Cool.
Typically like the left-handed power hitters, guys who pull the ball a lot to the right side. That's the easiest place to shift, and those guys are going to run into be the victims of the shift over and over again. We saw it here for years with Kyle Seager. Last year, Carlos Santana. And for the last half a decade, Carlos Santana has been one of those players that's been victimized by the shift more and more. So that's two guys on our team that really stand to benefit from no shift this year. We'll see how the rest of the league shakes out. Obviously, our info will tell us preseason what we think will happen, and then we'll get more data as we go in season.
To end our interview with Teoscar, Bump asked, hey, Teoscar, you talked about just like keeping belief in yourself, and do you have any messages for young athletes? You joked to open the interview, like, look, I wasn't the super athletic, but I love sports. I actually have had a couple questions from people going, oh my God, my son wants to be a GM, or like, oh my God, like I'm in college to do it. So could we end the interview the same way by just saying, like, what's either a piece of advice or maybe a path that you took that worked for you, recognizing there are many different paths?
I think a couple of things I would advise is, don't do what I did. Go major in economics or statistics or something like that. Learn to code, learn to program. That's just the way the game is going today. I'm a relative dinosaur in that way, and that I can't do those things. So I'm lucky I got in when I did, because I'd have no chance now. I think the other thing is, in the sense, to do what I did do, which is take any job that's connected to the sport you want to get into. Yeah. It doesn't matter how small it seems, how medial the task. Yeah, just anything you can do to be connected to the thing you want to do. You will meet more people that way, and don't be afraid to tell them, this is what I want to do in the long run. You never know who the person that you meet might know. That person might know a person who might know a person who might know a person. And you can play the Kevin Bacon game and get introduced to someone who along the way is the person who led to you getting your first break in a front office. So that would be my advice, is just do anything to get yourself connected to that sport.
Hey, awesome. Good stuff. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks
for Mariners GM Justin Hollander, kind enough to join us to talk to us.